Welcome into the Saints Insider Podcast. Today is Wednesday, April 9th. I'm Zach Ewing with our esteemed columnists, Rod Walker and Jeff Duncan. Our beat writers are both slacking off, taking time off. Typical.
Yeah.
No, it's actually a good time for that because we are in the calm before the storm of the NFL draft, which is 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Does it feel like it's gone quicker this year?
It does feel like it's sneaking up. That's got to be a Super Bowl thing.
That Super Bowl?
So, yeah,
We were all busy with the Super Bowl. And then all of a sudden it's the combine and free agency, and now here we are with just 2 weeks to go before the draft. Today we're going to talk about skill players the Saints might take, talking running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. Next week we'll do some defensive players, we'll do some other stuff, and then we'll finish with a show. I think the day before the draft, maybe we'll go through a mock draft. We'll make Luke or Matt do a full mock draft, and we'll go through it.
People love skill players.
They do.
It's the sexy positions.
I think, though, speaking of sexy positions, we'd be remiss if we didn't. We did a whole quarterback show last week, but the buzz around the Saints taking a quarterback just keeps going up, Rod. I mean, it's Shedeur is now the favorite to go at number 9. I think he's like plus 270. It's still less than 50-50, but he's the hot name. You start to hear him connected with Jackson Dart, with Tyler Shugg. It seems real.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of started with those FanDuel betting odds, and then you had Dion at the Colorado Pro Day saying, "Oh, I love black and gold." And he kept just kind of making these little subtle hints as if, the Saints were the team. And then he posted a picture with Keith Williams and Keith Williams, who's the Saints running back coach, and the quarterback coach, who's
Scott Tolzien.
Yeah, he posted that picture. So it's just been like a lot of little things like that, and it doesn't really take much to, get that fire started. So a lot of fans are kind of in. I did a poll on X the other day, just asking fans if Shedeur is there at 9, should the Saints get him? It was 3 options. Should the Saints pick him? One of the options was yes. The second was no, because it's not a need, and the third one was no, because he's not the answer. And the yes is one, like 52%, and then next was like 30-something% on the no, he's not the answer, and then third was just, not a need. So, there was, it's kind of a mixed bag. People all over the place on this.
Yeah, he would excite people for sure. Rod, it seems crazy to me the Saints would take a quarterback at number 9 after restructuring Derek Carr. But we were just talking off air about a possibility. Maybe they don't take a quarterback at 9, but would they trade back up from number 40, their second-round pick, either to early second round, late first round, and try to grab one there?
Yeah, because you want to get that fifth year, the control of the fifth year of a player at a quarterback. That's the goal of trading back.
Have to be a first round,
yeah. Yeah, in the first round. So it makes sense if you're, especially in this draft where I think most of the quarterbacks are viewed as kind of developmental types. So they're going to sit behind Derek Carr probably. If you take one, and then you're gonna want that longer runway. So it makes sense, and the Saints historically do that. And I get the sense that fans just, I think the reason, to Rod's point, fans are just dying for some kind of excitement with the Saints. There's just not a lot of excitement. You go back to 2006 when Peyton took over and they drafted Reggie Bush. That was like over the moon excitement. He was such a huge prospect, and I feel like that's where the team is now. They're wanting something to get excited about. They got excited last year about Spencer Rattler because of that same reason, I think. And so I think Shedeur, with his obviously, star power, name recognition, tips, moves the needle in that regard. But if you're the organization, you have to make the decision, is that the reason to draft somebody? I don't know. But I do think there's that gulf in the period of time between the pro days and the draft. There's not a lot of things to cover, so there tends to be a lot of speculation going on, and I think that's what we're finding right now.
If you had asked me a month ago, are the Saints taking a quarterback? No, come on. That's all just people getting excited like you're talking about. It has now been talked about so much, and this stuff with Dion saying black and gold, and I'm starting to think it's maybe for real, and I don't know if it's at number 9 or not. But
yeah, for me, I think it's just a matter of, and I know I keep talking about how much I like Shedeur, and I think it just, if he's a guy that Kellen Moore really, really likes, I think they do it. But that's the only reason they do it. You have to really like him.
Yeah.
I don't think they're just going to grab a quarterback just to, you're not going to, it's too important of a draft to do that. So they'd have to really like him and think he's a guy that can be the future of this franchise to do it.
I will say, if the Saints take a quarterback, and I don't care if it's first round, second round, fourth round, whatever it is, to me, that tells me they don't have any faith in Spencer Rattler long-term as the backup. Because why would you bring somebody else in who's just a year behind Rattler to compete with him if you had a lot of faith in him?
Yeah, I mean, they haven't even had a chance to work with Rattler on the field yet, so that would be kind of interesting. But I would say I think Rattler is probably grade-wise similar to Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, all the ones we're talking about right now. I mean, almost all the teams last year had him graded as a second or third round quarterback, and that's where these quarterbacks, after you get past Cam Ward, are almost all graded. So there wouldn't be a big difference. I guess the difference would be what Kellen Moore and them thought of him last year when they were grading him in Philadelphia. If they didn't feel like he had the traits or whatever it was that they like, he's going to get his guy. I mean, that's the one thing I would say. And to Rod's point also, this draft we've talked about before, there's like 6-7 players that are kind of viewed as elite, and the Saints are obviously at 9. So unless they trade up and get one of those blue chip guys, you could make the argument that taking a quarterback at 9 is okay because the player they're getting at the other position probably is not graded any higher. They're probably from whatever, number 8 or 9 on the draft board, probably all the way down to about 40 is probably the same grade. So, it's not like you're passing on another blue chip player. So it's just a weird draft this year. It's not a great draft. I don't think there's going to be like the 2011 draft or 2017 where we had a bunch of all-pros and Pro Bowlers that you were getting at the bottom of the first round. I don't think it's going to be one of those kind of drafts. I think it's going to be closer to, and I pointed that out in my column, like 2011, 2021, where once you get past the top 10 guys, it's really hit or miss on impact players.
It would be like the third year in a row they've taken a quarterback if they did it. I mean,
yeah.
Going back to Jake Hayner and then Spencer last year. And then I guess you go back 2 years before Hayner, that was the Ian Book draft. I mean, and these are all just kind of developmental guys. So, again, if you're getting a quarterback, it has to be somebody you really think can be the
guy.
Quarterback.
I agree. And by the way, the background of this, Jeff wrote a column saying that you can read at NOLA.com/Saints, basically saying the Saints should not take a quarterback this year, that this year's draft class is not good enough to justify
in
that.
round one.
Okay.
Yeah, in round one, I mean, they've got that drought. It's 53 years going back to Archie in the traditional draft. They haven't used a first-round pick on a quarterback. I don't think any of these quarterbacks, in my opinion, warrant taking them at number 9. Now, if you wanted to take one at 40 in the second round, I think that'd be perfect. Or I could even live with maybe trading back into the bottom of the first round. But I just think there's this organization at this point where they're at, they can't afford to swing and miss. And I think there's too much swing and miss on all the other prospects that, you have to get somebody that's going to be a part of your core going forward. I pointed out, like, the drafts I pointed out, 21 and 2011, where organizations reached on guys like Zach Wilson and Trey Lance, and they passed up Penny Sewell and guys, that are potentially like multi-year all-pros at other positions. I don't know if Saints feel like those other positions have those type of impact players, but I wouldn't pass up on a sure thing. They don't have that luxury right now. They need to get stocked on this roster. They're coming off a 5-12 season. They're aging. They're going to have to transition to a new core. They need to start stacking core players, not taking home run swings.
Okay, well, good transition because, as you said, there are kind of consensus 6 to 7 elite prospects in this draft. The Saints pick at 9. Now, I don't know that Cam Ward is considered one of those 6 or 7 elite prospects, strangely enough. And
Probably not.
Now you're looking at only 8 picks before the Saints pick if the Titans do take Cam Ward. And maybe somebody else reaches. Maybe one of those guys does fall to 9. But if not, we're going to get into a little bit of a discussion, at least about one of them. And so that was our quarterback preface. Now we'll talk about these skill players. And the first one we really need to talk about is Ashton Jeanty, Boise State running back. Obviously, you just hired a Boise State coach. We've mentioned that connection before. If he is truly as good as everyone is saying, then not only would he be worthy of the number 9 pick, even though you have a starter entrenched, obviously, in Alvin Kamara, but he's getting older. But he may be worthy of the Saints, let's say, trading up and trying to get to 6 or 7 to take this guy. I mean, do you guys agree with that?
Well, that's maybe the only guy I would consider trading up for. But what's the cost going to be?
Yeah.
You know, I think every other team in the league knows the same thing. So they're probably going to be an exorbitant cost to do that. But that's the one guy that I feel like for sure. I mean, his makeup is great. His production's great. He's at a position they're going to need help at. I mean, Alvin's not going to keep going strong for long. I just think he's a no-brainer, surefire, future Pro Bowler. Everyone you talk to, I mean, there's just no cracks in the armor with this kid. And he's got a connection with Boise State. So
Yeah, I agree. And I think you look at what Kellen Moore did this year. He had a running back in Saquon Barkley. I think this is kind of that kind of guy. And I mean, Kellen Moore saw the success he had with Saquon Barkley, and I think this is the kind of guy that he would definitely want on his roster. And I do think this is the kind of guy that I think if they, if he got close and he's at, they're down to 6 and 7 and they think they need to jump up and make a move, I think they would. I think Kellen Moore is really high on this guy, but just because of the success he had with Barkley.
Yeah, I mean, the draft a lot of times centers around, you got your guys who rely on film, right, and say, well, look at the film of this guy, and then you got your guys who rely on analytics and stats and things like that and say, well, he's really good because he has this measurable or because he ran for that many yards as a sophomore. And all. And Jeanty is one of the cases where they just agree. Like, he is a legitimate home run prospect. To me, the key here is the Raiders at 6. That's where you always see a mock to is, if we say the top 5 in some order are going to be Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and then maybe Shedeur Sanders, maybe one of the offensive linemen, and then the Jaguars, Mason Graham, the defensive tackle at number 5. You see a lot. The Raiders at 6 is where Jeanty tends to get mocked. To me, if the Raiders pick has come and gone and Jeanty is still on the board, if I'm the Saints, that's where I'm thinking about pouncing. The Jets have the number 7 pick. They got a couple of good young running backs. They probably don't need Ashton Jeanty. Carolina's 8th.
Yeah.
Carolina could draft him for sure. And so 7's the spot where you say, we better go get him. Now, to your guys' point, what if there's 6 other teams saying we got to go get him too? And
yeah, look, and I think like all these mock drafts, people start thinking, that this is what's going to happen. I mean, everybody's just speculating. I mean, like, who's to say Jacksonville's not going to take him? I mean, why would Jacksonville not take him? I mean, if you think this guy's
they
like
need defense. I mean, that's,
I know,
that's,
but I mean,
the
if you
reason,
think this guy's LaDainian Tomlinson, who cares? Mason, I mean, like, go get LaDainian Tomlinson. Worry about your defense around. I mean, to me, I think people are falling into this groupthink. I think somebody's going to take him really high because I think everybody knows this guy's like a sure thing, and you worry about the rest of it later on. So I don't know if he's ever even going to be in play, and then I don't know if there's any other skill players other than him, at least looking at the big boards on everybody's putting up, that would warrant taking him at number 9 for the Saints. Unless you talk about
we're talking about a running back now, and all these years we talk about how much they've been
no doubt.
devalued, and now all of a sudden we have a guy like this, and I think that goes back to Saquon and what
It's
he
the
did.
Saquon factor.
Yeah, he kind of changed the whole dynamic of that position. So
Well, and the larger discussion there is that as running backs became devalued and defenses started to get smaller and faster, it cycles back around to where now, let's get this big, strong tank of a running back in there to run over these smaller defenders, and that's what we saw in Philadelphia last year.
And that's a great point. And what the league's gone to now is a lot of too deep defensive, schemes that are forcing you to drive down the field, move the chains. You're not getting over the top in the passing game, and you have to be able to run the ball against that two safety look. And the Eagles exploited that this year. I mean, look at the Saints game against the Eagles this year. The one big play was that Saquon Barkley run.
Oh, there was another one.
Well, that's true. But you know what I mean? Like, they were down their top 2 receivers. They won the game with their running game and their tight end.
Yeah, I mean, they don't win the game if Saquon doesn't bust that run. There's no
right.
way.
So, like, I can see where in this draft, I mean, they're talking about 30 running backs getting drafted in this draft. I mean, it's crazy deep. But there's only one, I think, superstar.
I think there's only one Ashton Jeanty, but I will say that is one at least minor argument against jumping up and taking him is that this is a very deep running back draft. Omarion Hampton at North Carolina is supposed to be another first rounder, but even if you go beyond that, you've got your Cam Scatteraboo from Arizona State, you've got the 2 guys from Ohio State, Quinshon Judkins and Trayvon Henderson, and then the one I really like too, and we have a discussion where maybe second round guys. Caleb Johnson of Iowa is my favorite. I think he's in the mold of Ashton Jeanty. He's a big, strong, physical between the tackles runner. So that's a minor argument to me against it. But I think we're all in agreement. Like if he's still there at 7, 8, especially if he's still there at 9 for the Saints, like you have to heavily consider him.
Yeah.
If he's there at 9 and they don't take him, Rod or I will eviscerate him, I think, in a column.
Well, unless you can just.
I think get Shador. I mean, I'll be all in.
Well, Rod won't. Yeah, Rod.
Well, or at
Rod
that
won't
point,
take him 9 and 10.
then do you become the team holding the auction and saying, okay, you 6 teams who want Ashton Jeanty, what are you offering us? And I mean, that's not the Saints' MO. They don't trade back, but that would be the perfect spot to do it. If you're not convinced or you really like one of the later running backs, to sit there at 9 and say, who wants him? Come get him. What are you offering?
Right. Yeah, no.
I mean, you can't pass up on him.
You can't
if
pass
he's there
him.
at 9, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and look, we're talking about offensive players, and that's the subject matter of the pod. But this team, the struggle last year was on defense. You know what I mean? Like they were 30th in the league in defense. They're old.
Sneak preview of next week's
Yeah,
pod,
I was going to say
because I actually really agree with you there.
I think that's where they've got to address in this draft, get young and athletic. But for the purpose of this pod, who you would take at 9? I mean, you're high on T-Mac, Tet. I'm not as high on him, but he's the one receiver I think you would even consider at 9.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else warrants that.
Well, there's 2 other guys, and one's name you mentioned McMillan, and the other name is really close to Warren's. So Tyler Warren.
Oh, the tight end.
We'll talk about those 2 guys. That joke didn't land. It's okay. Let's take a break first. We'll come back and talk about Tyler Warren and Tet McMillan and anybody else we could see the Saints taking in the skill position realm right after this.
There's no better place to parlay than Caesars Sportsbook. With quick picks, you can tap right into pre-built, ready-to-bet parlays right from the home screen. And if you miss tip-off, no worries. You can play same-game parlays live during the action. Plus, it's never been easier to find and bet on the biggest matchups of the day, so you can keep up with all the action. Caesars Sportsbook, proud partner of the NBA and the only sportsbook app with Caesars Rewards. Download it today.
Welcome back to the Saints Insider Podcast. Zach Ewing here with Rod Walker and Jeff Duncan. Be sure to subscribe to our New Orleans Saints at NOLA.com YouTube channel. That's where we live. We put a bunch of videos up there. Hit the like button. Leave your comments about skill position players you would like the Saints to go after, whether it be at number 9 or maybe a little later in the draft. That's what we're talking about today. Talking about Ashton Jeanty being absolutely worthy of that number 9 pick. Guys, there's 2 other names who I think are at least borderline in that range when you look at mock drafts and stuff. And the first one is Penn State tight end Tyler Warren. And we did our best case, worst case scenarios last week, and I think it was Luke who said Tyler Warren was the guy he would take if all of these other big names are off the board. I'm skeptical myself, and I'll give the reasons why. But does either of you have a strong case for Tyler Warren?
No, I mean I wouldn't hate it if they took him at 9, but I'm not tight end unless you're Brock Bowers. Some superstar, and I think they're okay at tight end. I know you don't draft for need, but I think that's the one area where, unless you're getting a huge upgrade, long term, I guess you could make the case. Taysom Hill's not going to be here long term. Foster Moreau's coming off a pretty serious injury. He's pretty much a role player. You could make the case, but you just paid Juwan Johnson. You signed him to a second contract. It would have to be somebody really elite for me to take him at number 9.
How do you feel about Tyler Warren?
I mean, I agree. I mean, I was going to actually point out about. I mean, they just. Do you believe in Juwan Johnson? No, you don't. I mean, you paid him $30 million for 3 years. So, I do like Tyler Warren a lot, but I just don't know if I'd take him at 9 at that position. I know everybody always talks about, he could be like the next Taysom Hill, and we just kind of assume that. I mean, obviously Taysom Hill was really good with what he did here, but I think we just kind of assumed that we need to keep getting these Taysom Hill guys, and I don't even know.
Is there another Taysom Hill?
Right, might not be another one. Yeah, so I think everybody's just kind of fishing for another one, but. And that's kind of like a New Orleans thing. Like, people here just can't let Taysom Hill go like they want the next one. So, no, I don't think I mean, if Jeanty's gone, Shador's gone, I mean, maybe you do take him, but I just don't think it's that big of a need.
Yeah, so here's my thing. I think Tyler Warren would be a bit of a luxury pick for a team that can't afford to make a luxury pick. And you could argue that about Ashton Jeanty, too. But to me, he is such an elite prospect, you make an exception. Tyler Warren, if you were picking at 19 and not 9, I'd be totally fine with that. I think he's going to be a solid starter in the league for a long time. I've mentioned like a Dalton Kincaid comp. Like he's going to be a good player. Is he going to be a great player, which is what you need on this team right now? I just don't see it. And I know he was productive at Penn State. His PFF blocking grades were a little bit mediocre compared to some of the other tight ends in the class. PFF is not gospel, especially at college. I don't think that means he can't be a good player. But more than anything, I think people look at what happened with Brock Bowers and the Raiders last year, and they say, "Oh man, you can't miss on the next Brock Bowers. Got to go get Brock Bowers." Tyler Warren's not Brock Bowers. There's only one of those guys too.
Yeah, and I mean, what's the guy's name at from Michigan?
Loveland, Colston
Loveland. Yeah,
I like him too, and that's what I'd almost like. I don't know if I grade them quite equally, but if you want a tight end, I don't see them as being. I don't see Tyler Warren as being so much better that you have to go get him, especially that high.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're talking about here is kind of the same thing. Once you get past those elite 6 or 7, that's where Warren and Loveland kind of fall into that next group. You know, as tight end, those guys are going to be graded similarly probably to the other prospects in your bullpen or cloud, however you want to term it. And I just think you got a bigger needs at other spots, especially cornerback. I know we're going to talk about defense next week, but that's why I don't say you take a tight end, because I don't think there's not an Ashton Jeanty tight end.
You're tipping your hand as to what you want the Saints to do here.
I mean, I just think I feel like there's no elite standout guy at these other positions where you'd be worth investing. I mean, the Saints. Granted, they've got injury concerns with Shaheed and Olave. I mean, that's a serious thing. I mean, we don't know long term. I mean, Brandon Cooks is in his 30s. You could make a case for a receiver, but it's not a great receiver draft. But I think offensively, they're in pretty good shape if they stay healthy.
Do you? I mean, the Juwan Johnson part of this conversation. Do you think there's any discussion or any idea that, you know, maybe we draft Tyler Warren and Juwan Johnson kind of becomes more of a wide receiver, which is what he can play at times anyway. I mean, he's not.
But he can't run. He can't run like a wide receiver.
Just like a possession wide receiver.
I mean, he'd have to transform his body again. He's already transformed it up to be a tight end. That's a rough ask for him, I think. No, I think the key is getting more out of him at tight end. I don't understand why he hasn't produced. I don't know if that's on Derek Carr or on the scheme or on him. I don't know what it is, but he certainly has ability. And there are people in the league that think he's, a really talented player. So I think they've got to find a way to and maybe that's what Kellen Moore's counting on. That's why they re-upped him, that they're going to make him a focal point.
Yeah, you think maybe they see something in him. So Tyler Warren, maybe not the best fit. Like I'm not trying to put the guy down. I still think he's a good player. He's a first-round talent. I just don't know that it's the right fit at the right spot for New Orleans.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, going back to even last year, we keep talking about Brock Bowers, but I think what did the Saints pick last year?
14.
14. Okay.
Yeah.
We all if Brock Bowers was there at 14, get him for sure.
Yeah.
And even if he was there at 9, I think we would have said the same thing. But I just don't think most of us see. And to be fair, I mean, I did watch Brock Bowers more. I mean, he's playing the SEC, so I'm watching more of those games. So, but I really like everything about him, and I think he's lived up to it. And I just don't know if I see that in Warren.
I mean, Brock Bowers was, I think, all-pro first team as a rookie.
He led all rookies in receiving yards.
He was setting record. I mean, this guy was, and he was doing that at Georgia. In the SEC, I mean, he was making big plays. Guys like that don't come around very often. That's what I thought Kyle Pitts was going to be doing, and he just hasn't transitioned the same way. So if you get one of those elite guys, there's no doubt about it. There's a value to it. I just don't know if these guys are it.
Yeah,
maybe they'll prove us wrong.
Okay,
we do appreciate Tyler Warren coming on.
We do. We thank him for coming by on Radio Row. That was that makes me feel even worse about it. I don't know, but I gotta tell it like it is. Okay, the third guy we wanted to really spotlight here was Tetairoa McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona. I really like this guy. I know that there's been some question marks about his makeup and his. I said, I don't watch film and stuff in this video that surfaced a couple years ago. I like him, Rod. I know you like him. What's your case for him?
I guess my main case is just he's a big receiver, 6'4", 220. I think that's what the Saints offense has been missing. We keep talking about Olave and Rashid and Brandon Cook. To me, I think those are like 3 of the same guys. I just think they need this kind of receiver. They've been missing this kind of guy, and this is a guy that he has a big catch radius and all those things that you like in a big body receiver. And I just think I think it fills a void.
Yeah. No,
I think 9 is probably a little high for him, but I think if you could give me one need that this team really had, I think that's it.
That's kind of the case against, I think, is that, like, is 9 too high for McMillan? But if those 6, 7 elite guys are off the board, then
they're stuck. Yeah. Unless they trade down. Everybody keeps saying they're not going to. I think this is a year to trade down, but I don't know who's going to trade up. Why would anybody, unless they
has to be somebody they really like.
Yeah, I mean, but McMillan does sound, the more I read about him, he does sound a lot like Marcus Colston, maybe a more athletic Marcus Colston. And we saw what kind of value he brought. The body control, the ability. He's a former volleyball player, so he's great catch point, great hands. They don't have a guy like that. I mean, that's what Mike Thomas was, but he's probably a little more athletic than Thomas was. But they're missing that element. So I can see a value there. He's the only guy I would consider the receiver group at 9, just because I think he does bring something you're going to get right away. And, there is concerns with these smaller guys getting hurt. I think that's going to be a concern going forward. I think people thinking that, they're not going to have injury concerns at receiver. I mean, that last year was a fluke. I don't think so. I mean, I think these smaller guys are always going to get banged up.
I don't know how you can look at Chris Olave and say there's not an injury concern going forward. 100% there is.
Yeah, I mean, I even thought about, like, it's a question for Kellen Moore, but, I mean, I don't know how you do it because obviously defensive teams and coordinators are savvy, but, like, do you just not run him over the middle? Do you run him on routes where he's not going to get in harm's way, but then people are going to catch on to that
quick, yeah.
But that's just the league, man. It's a violent league, and he's going to go over the middle. He's going to get walloped. It's going to happen. So, like, I don't know. Every time I think people are going to hold their breath when he gets hit.
I think wide receiver is a pretty big need for this team. I just and like you guys are saying, a big-bodied wide receiver. I do have a stat here. This is a little bit of a, like, odd-numbered Tuesdays stat, but underclassmen wide receivers in the last 15 years to average 100 yards against power conference teams.
This is one of those.
There's only 4.
Classic Zach Ewing.
There's only 4.
Nerd ball. Like,
but listen to
esoteric
the 4.
statistics.
The 4 are Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's off to a good start in Seattle. Jordan Addison, who I think a lot more people would know about if it weren't for Jordan Jefferson. Good start to his career in Minnesota. Oh, Jamar Chase, by the way. And the 4th one is Tet McMillan. Okay, so he did it at a young age against power conference competition. He's got the body. He can play in the slot. He can play outside. I actually see a pretty good fit here. Now, I guess the question is, could you trade down and get him? Could you trade back up from 40 and still get him? Maybe he's a little bit of a tweener as far as where you draft him. But
yeah, I think if you like him, get him at 9 because, like I said, I think the players are all going to be graded the same. And there's definitely a case to be made for him. Like, he's a guy that's going to bring something that you don't have right now. I'm not sure Tyler Warren does that.
Another one, underclassmen wide receivers over 215 pounds who average 3.5 yards per route run.
How many people are we talking about? It might only be like 6 guys.
No, there's more. No, come on. There's 130 college football teams. Come on. There's 2 of them, T. Higgins and Tet McMillan.
What was it? Give me the whole thing.
Okay.
Over 215 pounds.
Over 215 pounds who posted 3.5 yards per route run as sophomores. Okay, I know it's a little.
Who found the who? We're
digging.
You did this?
It's a fantasy website that I look at. Okay, I'm digging. Okay, I get it. But when you start to put in these parameters and you say these are the only 2 names that popped out, and All Pro and Tet McMillan.
Who's the other one? T. Higgins.
T. Higgins.
Okay.
I don't know. Has T. Higgins been All Pro? Maybe not, but close.
No, he's not All Pro.
If you use Tet's full name, he's the only one who fits that criteria and has like more than 3 syllables in his name.
Yeah,
I deserve that. I deserve
esoteric, man.
Okay. I'm just saying, I think there's a path for him to be really good. He fits the mold of a good NFL wide receiver.
Yeah.
And the Saints just they have no depth there. I mean, look at the last 2 years they've had games thrown out there with guys where you're like, who's the best receiver on the field right now? Is it Bub Means? Is it 2 years ago in Atlanta, who were they running out there when all those guys got hurt at the same time?
Jarvis Landry back there?
No, he wasn't there.
I don't know.
I mean, it was really bad. It was like, fifth and sixth round guys and undrafted free agents and guys you picked up off the street are out there and you're trying to win games with these guys. The Saints have no depth there, and they have two guys coming back from serious injuries.
Well, and they've got no real difference maker. I mean, Olave, when he's healthy, is certainly a very frontline receiver, but this guy would be somebody they have to game plan against, defensive coordinators. So, like I said, he's the only receiver I think you consider at 9.
All right. Well, let's move on. Last thing we're going to talk about, I put second round on this slide, but maybe it's even later in the draft. Are there skill position guys that you guys like who aren't first rounders, but you kind of maybe sleepers you have your eye on? Any names out there? I had mine, Caleb Johnson.
Why do you like him?
Again, big-bodied guy between the tackles, kind of the thunder to Kamara's lightning, if you will. We talked before about how AK is not best used pounding him in between the tackles 15 times a game. So you get a guy like this who can maybe soften it up. I think they maybe tried to do that with Kendry Miller, and it hasn't worked out. So I would take another shot on a guy like Caleb Johnson. Some of these receivers may fall too, Rod. Is Matthew Golden going to fall to the second round? Maybe he's the only one taken in the first round? I don't know.
For me, Golden you still kind of adding a smaller receiver, so I don't know if you really
Luther Burden?
What's the Iowa State? Jaden Higgins.
That's the guy I like because he's big.
He's
I like
receiver.
him too. Yeah.
Yeah, you could get him in the second round,
you
maybe.
get him, and then you got Trey Harris at Ole Miss, who I think is really good. I know I shouldn't be touting the Ole Miss guys, but I think he's from Lafayette. He had some injuries this season. He got hurt in the LSU game, I think it was, and then got hurt again in the Florida game. So there was a time in the season when people were thinking that he was like one of the better receivers in the country. I mean, they were talking about him and Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams at Alabama.
Yeah.
Freshman, yeah. Those are considered some of the best receivers in the country. So I think Trey Harris is a guy that, if you can get him in the second round, I think you got a really good player.
I'm going to sell you on my other Missouri guy, Luther Burden.
I like Luther Burden, yeah.
He's a big body. Got some.
How big is he? I didn't notice his size.
You know what? I'm going to look.
I'm thinking
we're looking up live because I don't want to
Jaden
miss.
Higgins guy. The more I read on
I don't think
him,
he's as big as him.
Yeah, he's like 6'3" or something, 6'4". That's the guy that I think. He in a sense like he's ascending. He's kind of positional.
6 foot 210 for
Yeah.
Luther Burden. So
Right now, I like Higgins a lot. Just read what I've read about him, but I agree with you on Golden. I mean, he's same kind of guy they've already got.
You're right.
And Isaiah Bond is the speedster out of Texas, but huge drop numbers, like really high drop percentage. That just in talking to Jeff Ireland, that's one of the things he totally downgrades. So I'd be surprised if they even went down that road with him.
one of the things we may talk about next week too is, and Jeff, you've mentioned this before, that people have told you the strength of this draft is between rounds 2 and 5, which is where the Saints have a bunch of picks. Maybe an argument against trading up because you don't want to use a bunch of that capital, but I think they can find some of these guys in that range.
Oh, yeah. I don't think there's any doubt. Like I said earlier before we went on air, it feels like the draft where they're at doesn't set up well for how this draft is. Like at number 9, they're right outside where the elite players are in this class. And then when you get down to the second round at 40, you just start looking at that spot. I mean, I think they're going to have to move around. And I know that's what they're good at, but I think this is a draft where they're going to have to move around and target, and they've got the ammo to do it. They've got 9 picks. It's the most since 2015. I think this draft, more than any other that I can remember in recent years, is going to really lean on Jeff Ireland and that college scouting staff, identifying guys that fit what this team needs, especially with a new staff and new schemes on both sides of the ball to go get guys. I don't think they're going to stay at 40, 71. I'd really be surprised. I think they're going to be moving around.
All right. Any final thoughts on skill players? Does skill player at number 9 still seem like an awkward fit?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just feels like a bad spot to be in this draft, number 9.
How about you,
Yeah,
Rob?
for me, I mean, again, Shador and Jeanty, if you get either one of those two at 9, I'd put Jeanty first. I mean, I think if you get him at 9, you got to get him. And if you like Shador and think he's that guy, and you get him at 9, I'm okay with it.
All right. So that's our podcast for today. We talked about some skill players, some quarterbacks. We're going to do defense at some point next week, and maybe we'll do, I don't know, can we do a whole podcast on trade possibilities? Probably not. We'll figure out something else to talk about. And then we will do our final mock the day before the draft starts. We'll have our live draft show here on the New Orleans Saints at NOLA.com YouTube channel. For our producer, Norman Bell, he's Rod Walker and Jeff Duncan. I'm Zach Ewing. Thank you for watching the Saints Insider.